up, ladies and gentlemen? The Greyt podcast, episode 53. And on today's episode, this beautiful Friday afternoon, on a whim yesterday, I was thinking to myself, it's like, okay, what should tomorrow's episode be about? What should I do? And then it, boom, hit me. I am going to do 5 teams, okay? 5. These 5 teams are teams that I feel that will end up being very different than what people expect. Okay? And that can be good or bad. Just to be clear, I have 5 teams here. 3 of them I think will do a lot better than people think. 2 of them a lot worse. And we will get in to those 5. I'll start with the 3 good ones. We'll start on a good note. Okay? So, we'll do this team first. I've talked about this team a number of times. I've talked about this team since January. And maybe next week I'll try and make a point to not mention this team so that I don't sound like I'm just repeating myself every week. It's the LSU Tigers. I've said it 1,000 times. I might end up saying it 1,000 more times. This team is a playoff contender. Maybe, I'm not willing to fully commit, maybe a national title contender. Okay? Why do I feel that way? I feel that way because of what they were able to accomplish in the transfer portal. Because there's two steps to this. Number one was bringing back Garrett Nussmeier. Success. Especially since you weren't able to snag Bryce Underwood. Michigan stole him right out from under you, right? Secondly, it's the transfer portal and what they were able to do. They get 2 instant starters at wide receiver in Nick Anderson and Barian Brown. They bring in an immediate starter at edge in Patrick Payton. Another guy who's going to play a lot at edge for them in Jack Pyburn out of Florida. They bring in a solid backup quarterback in Michael Van Buren out of Mississippi State. They bring in one of Oklahoma's better offensive weapons last season, Bauer Sharp, the tight end. They bring in 2 really nice corners. One guy, Mansour Delane out of Virginia Tech, who played a lot of snaps for them. He was a starting corner for them. He was, in my opinion, going to be probably a 2nd, 3rd round draft pick in the draft if he had come out. And then Jakeem Jackson, who's a young corner out of Florida, who has a lot of potential. And then my main concern for LSU is the offensive line. They lost Will Campbell. They lost Emory Jones Jr. They lost Garrett, what's his name? Garrett Dillinger and I think Miles Frazier. But they bring in Josh Thompson out of Northwestern and Braylon Moore to help the interior of that offensive line. Okay? 2 more veteran type of guys. And they also brought in people that will just help them depth-wise. A Tamarcus Cooley at safety out of NC State. A Jamari Butler, another edge rusher out of Nebraska. Donovan Green, a tight end from Texas A&M. Sadir Mitchell, defensive tackle from Texas. Destin Hill, a wide receiver from Florida State. A young guy. And they also brought in a punter from Middle Tennessee. I love what they have done. LSU starting running back next season is projected to be a top 10 running back in the country. They're bringing back Harold Perkins. I love what this LSU team is looking like. Okay? I love it. You have Nick Anderson, who is 6'3.5", 190. He'll be a more big body type of receiver. And then you have Barian Brown, who is just an absolute speeder. Just a speed demon down the sidelines. And I think those 2 are very different types of receivers, and so I like the dynamic of those 2 with Garrett Nussmeier. And that's how I feel about LSU. Everyone knows this. Okay, so we'll move on to the other four that I haven't. I don't think I've. Well, you know what? We'll just wait till we get there. The second team is Auburn. To clarify, I do not think Auburn is an SEC title contender or a playoff contender. But I do think that if you believe that Auburn is going to be as bad as they've been the past couple of seasons under Hugh Freeze, I think you're kidding yourself. Okay? I think you're kidding yourself, and I'll get into why. What's been Auburn's biggest problem? Offense. Okay, so what did they do offensively? They brought in two quarterbacks. Sorry, three quarterbacks. They brought in Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, who I think will probably end up being the starter. A guy who beat Alabama, by the way, in Jackson Arnold. They brought in, Tanner Bailey from South Carolina, a quarterback, and Ashton Daniels out of Stanford, a quarterback, who's a veteran guy. What else did they do offensively? They brought in who was probably the number one receiver. He was up there. He was definitely one or two as far as one of the best receivers in the transfer portal. Eric Singleton Jr. out of Georgia Tech. They bring him in to match him up with Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman is going to continue to progress. Eric Singleton Jr. will be a nice added piece there, along with Horatio Fields out of Wake Forest. They bring in tight end Preston Howard out of Maryland. And they also bring in Xavier Chaplin, an offensive tackle from Virginia Tech. He was a really highly graded guy in the transfer portal. They also bring in a running back, Darrell Robinson, out of UConn. I was about to say UMass, UConn. And then they bring in an interior offensive lineman, Mason Murphy, out of USC. This is what they've done offensively. They are making sure that they shore up that offense. I think I'm 100% certain Auburn is going to be a lot better offensively next season. 100%. Okay? And they even did some things defensively. They brought in cornerback, how you say his name? Rayon Strader out of Miami of Ohio. They brought in linebacker Xavier Atkins from LSU, defensive tackle Chris Murray from Sam Houston, defensive tackle Dallas Walker IV from Western Kentucky, safety Tay Seymour from Georgia Tech, and they also brought in a punter and a kicker. Auburn is going to be a lot better next season. They're going to make a bowl game. I think they could win. I think they could win eight games. I don't know if I would go to 9. I definitely wouldn't go to 10, but I think they could go 8-4. I could see that. And I think they're going to give a lot of really good teams some trouble. I think they'll give Alabama a run for their money. Don't they? Oh my gosh, doesn't Auburn have a big game week 1? Let me just look up their schedule real quick. Auburn likes to have a big game week 1. And I feel like Baylor. I think they 100% can beat Baylor. I think they will beat Baylor. I could realistically see Auburn start off 4-0. Beat Baylor, beat Ball State, beat South Alabama, and beat Oklahoma. Now then they got to worry about Texas A&M and Georgia back to back, which will be rough. I think they could beat Missouri, beat Arkansas, beat Kentucky, beat Vanderbilt, beat Mercer. How many wins is that? Is that 9 wins? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like realistically, Auburn goes 9-3. Their only losses being to Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M. That could happen. I think 7-5 at worst. At worst, if something goes wrong against Baylor, and then for some reason they lose to Oklahoma, they could lose to Oklahoma. So that could be the 7-5. But I think at best 9-3, at worst 7-5, and even in that 9-3, I think they could give Texas A&M, Georgia, and Alabama some trouble, especially Texas A&M. I'm not fully sold on Texas A&M. But yeah, that is Auburn. I feel confident about them. I do. The third team. This is a team that a lot of people are hot on for this upcoming season. A lot of people are picking them to win the Big 12 next season, and that's Texas Tech. They really committed in the transfer portal, and it shows. They brought in Lee Hunter, defensive tackle from UCF. They brought in offensive tackle Howard Sampson from North Carolina, another offensive tackle Hunter Zambrano from Illinois State. I was wondering what that logo was. Illinois State. Romello Height was a popular guy in the transfer portal, edge rusher out of Georgia Tech. I mean, just looking at this, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like 6 guys in the top 100 of the transfer portal. Another guy at 101 just missed it. Another guy at 109 just missed it. I mean, they brought in a ton of guys in the transfer portal. A ton. And I think they really have a chance to take a major step forward there in Lubbock. It's Lubbock, isn't it? Isn't that where Texas Tech is? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Would I pick them to win the Big 12? Oof. I don't know. Because the Big 12 feels like a conference where everyone who thinks they know who's going to win the conference, or like whatever team everyone thinks is going to win the conference, is guaranteed not to win it. I mean, what were the names we were hearing last season? We were hearing Utah. We were hearing Iowa State. Those were 2 popular ones. We heard Kansas State a little bit. And who ended up winning the conference? Arizona State. And Arizona State, I think, is going to be a popular pick. They're probably the favorites to win the Big 12 next season, bringing back Sam Leavitt, their quarterback. I think Texas Tech is up there. Utah, I think, is always going to be up there as a possibility. But yeah, I think the Big 12 is just going to be that conference where it just feels like every team is just similar. And it's a coin flip who's going to win that conference. But Texas Tech has a good chance, and they've done a lot of good things. We'll just have to see if it's able to work, really. Now let's get into the 2 teams I think will do a lot worse than people expect. Look, I'm probably known as a Colorado hater, a Deion Sanders hater. If you think Colorado is winning the Big 12 next season, or even has a chance to, I think you need to be drug tested immediately. I'm just going to be honest. How does this team not fall off next season? How? How do they not? I like Caden Salter. I like him. He's a good quarterback. But can Deion coach a quarterback that isn't his son? I also don't think anyone would say that Caden Salter is better than Shedeur Sanders. So you have a fall off at quarterback, your most important position. And now that player is not your head coach's son. And more importantly, you lost your best player, being Travis Hunter, who is you basically lost your best corner and your best wide receiver because it's the same guy. Yeah, big problem. And again, I like Jaheim Otis out of Alabama, who you bringing in to play defensive tackle. But how am I supposed to be confident in Colorado next season when you lost by far your 2 best players, and you could argue those 2 best players were carrying your team to victory every week? And now you lost both. And now I look, and you brought in a bunch of guys in the transfer portal, but I'm not impressed by any of them really, other than Caden Salter, who, by the way, didn't have a great season last year. and Jaheim Otis. Those are really the only two guys who do anything for me, if we're being honest. And that's a major concern. A major concern. And you brought a bunch of group of five guys up in here. You brought a guy from Louisiana Tech, Fresno State, USF, Texas State, Louisiana Tech, UTSA, Tulsa, Liberty. I don't even know Jacksonville State. What is this? I don't even know. I don't even know what that logo is for this tight end, Zach Atkins. Doesn't matter. You get what I'm saying. How does this team not fall off a cliff? How? I'm just curious. I just want to know. I don't see how this team is good next season. I don't see it. And for the last team, I ranted about their quarterback last week. And so now I can rant about their entire team. And it's unfortunate because I like this team. I really do. If someone were to tell me, hey Grayson, you got to be a fan of a Big Ten team, I would choose this team. I would. This team or Iowa, one of the two. Or maybe Michigan State, and that's Penn State. Everyone who, if you listen to me, you know how I feel about Drew Trashcan Aller. You know how I feel about him. He sucks. Okay? He sucks. I'm telling you now, if my Steelers draft Jalen Milroe this year and then next year they draft Drew Aller, my TV is going out of a window. I'm telling you that right now. Out of a window. Here's my issue. Everyone thinks Penn State's going to be a top 5 team next year. Why? It's a very simple question. Why? And whatever answer you give me will lack logic, because whatever answer you give me will involve Drew Aller. And why anyone thinks that Drew Aller is good is beyond my comprehension. Beyond my comprehension. He's not good. Did we see the Notre Dame game? Were we watching the same game? Were we? Have we watched the same quarterback in all of these big games where he's been, quite frankly, trash, garbage? Let's talk about why I don't think Penn State's going to be good next season. Number 1, can't trust your quarterback. Number 2, can't trust your head coach to win a big game when it matters. You won 2 playoff games. Congrats. It was SMU and Boise State. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. If you played against anyone with relevance in that playoff, you would have lost. And the first time you did, you lost because your quarterback couldn't handle it, which I told you would happen. But look at this team. Look at it. Congrats, you're bringing back Nick Singleton. He's a good player. Danny Dennis Sutton, good player. But, and this is more important, it's not the lack of what you gained, because you didn't gain much of relevance in the portal. You really didn't. Your best player ranking-wise in the transfer portal was Devontae Ross, who was barely in the 100s, and he's a wide receiver from Troy. But what's more important is what you lost. You lost the best defensive player in the country last season in Abdul Carter. He's potentially the number 1 pick in the upcoming draft. I think he should be, because I think he's the best player in the draft. Abdul Carter. And not to mention, you're losing the guy who was the best tight end last season in Tyler Warren. You're losing both of them. You're also losing 2 safeties, Jalen Reed and Kevin Winston Jr. You're also losing a linebacker, Kobe King. You're losing a wide receiver, Julian Fleming, and a corner, Jalen Kimber. You're losing three secondary players, three players in the secondary, a linebacker, a wide receiver, a tremendous tight end, and a tremendous edge rusher. I think your defense naturally will take a step back, and your offense is not going to take a step forward because your quarterback is not capable. He's not capable. I have yet to understand why it's every year. It's every year there's this quarterback that everyone for some reason tells me is so great. Specifically the analysts and everyone on ESPN, they tell you, "Oh my gosh, Drew Aller, he's so good." I have yet to see it against competition of value. It is the same thing with Anthony Richardson. You can ask anyone who was there with me when I watched the NFL draft when the Colts drafted Anthony Trash Can Richardson, as I always called him when he was at Florida. I said he was going to be a bust. I said it on Facebook. I said it on social media. He would be a bust. It was the easiest prediction of all time. And now look, he's a bust. Why? Because cool, he's big, he's mobile, he has all this potential, right? One big problem, you have him playing quarterback and he can't throw the ball accurately. He's a turnover machine. And because he runs a lot and you're in the NFL with men and not boys, he's constantly injured. It's simple math, people. Simple math. Okay? But no one listened, and look where the Colts are now. Anthony Richardson barely plays, and when he does, he's terrible. It's the same thing with Drew Aller. Someone's going to draft Drew Aller probably in the first round for some reason. I'm going to crash out, and I'm going to tell you he's a bust, he's a bust, and he's a bust. And he will bust in the NFL. Guaranteed he's going to be such a bust. So yes, clearly as you can tell, as far as I am passionate in a bad way about Penn State, I'm passionate in a good way about LSU. Garrett Nussmeier is a good quarterback, a great quarterback. Drew Aller is not. Drew Aller is not Garrett Nussmeier. Period. Period. He's not DJ Lagway. He's not Sam Levitt. He's not Cade Klubnik. He's not Lenoris Sellers. He's none of them. Is he even Gunnar Stockton? Let's be honest. Because Gunnar Stockton, first of all, Gunnar Stockton looked better against Notre Dame's defense than Drew Aller did. Secondly, Gunnar Stockton led Georgia's comeback against Texas in the SEC championship game. Gunnar Stockton has an SEC championship win under his belt. Where's Drew Aller's Big Ten championship? Where is it? Did I miss it? The reality is, Drew Aller and Penn State and James Franklin won't beat Ohio State. They won't beat Michigan. They won't beat Oregon. That is the reality. That is their reality until they change their culture, until they change something over there. That's the reality. This has been episode 53 of the Be Great podcast. I hope everyone enjoys their lovely Friday and enjoys their weekend. I'll be back next week with another video. Maybe it'll be enough time for another mock draft. We'll see. I hope everyone has a great day, and I will talk to you guys next week.